Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Friday, we are back with another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. Joining me today is Nnamdi Osuagwu. How are you, Nnamdi?
Hi, Nnamdi. I'm very well right now from Estonia, Tallinn. Thank you for the invitation.
I love it. I love these shows where we get our international guests and we have great conversations. Thanks for joining, because I know right now it's around 7 p.m. your time. Let me do some housekeeping and I'll formally introduce my guest in today's topic. We are streaming live from LinkedIn and YouTube. We also are on techbehindfintech.com for you guys to look at it live. Today's show topic, banking's blind spot, the data challenge nobody wants to admit. Let me formally introduce my guest and let's get into today's topic. Nnamdi Osuagwu is a CPO of X Data Group, a B2B software development company. He is a product development specialist with 10 years of experience in the field of fintech. He has vast experience in business analysis, developing and monitor project performance to ensure company success. Nnamdi holds a degree from Dongbei University of Finance and Economics, a preeminent Chinese university in the fields of finance and economics. Prior to joining X Data Group in 2023, he worked in two of Europe's top banks, Citadel and Swedbank, where he was involved in product development. After joining X Data Group in 2023, he has now assumed full responsibility for the financial technology of its products, acting as the company's CPO. X Data Group specializes in cutting-edge technology solutions tailored exclusively for banks. From the front end to the back end app development, and the company handles the entire spectrum of internet banking solutions. Mr. Osuagwu is responsible for the development of products based on financial technologies for fintech platforms, banks, and payment systems. Several development teams and design units operate under his management. Nnamdi believes that one of his key roles as part of X Data Group is to develop and introduce innovative solutions not yet available in the European market. I love it. Before we get into today's topic, Nnamdi and I were talking about our various exercises. So you have a half marathon you're training for currently.
Yeah, I'll have it in 2 weeks in Valencia, in Spain.
Absolutely love it. The reason I like asking my guests about their workout routines, we have a show coming out called Sweating Equity, in which, like, Tech Behind FinTech is about a topic. Sweating Equity is about the guests. It's an in-person show that's in which we'll be working out and training with our guests while getting to the bottom of how they do what they do, what motivates them, their leadership style, and so forth. So that's a new show, Sweating Equity, sponsored by Tech Behind FinTech. I love it because I was telling Nnamdi with this exercise I came up with is in a deep pool in which me and my friends, we swim a few laps, we take a weight. We did it for the first time. It's a 6-pound weight. Go to the deep end, drop it, dive to get the weight, come back up, thread water, put it back, and swim some more. And it was extremely challenging for me to dive and retrieve the weight. So it took me like 3 attempts before I can do it. And Nnamdi, tell me about your swim routine that you were doing.
Yeah, like several years ago when I was dealing with the sports diving, we had a 100 meters pool. So what we were doing, we were starting without an oxygen. Then at the middle of the pool, we were grabbing this oxygen tank, and with it already and with oxygen, diving till the end of the pool. Then going back, and the middle, we were dropping this oxygen and diving till the end of the pool. And we were doing that several times, like one by one. and that was kind of hard. I remember it also was deep on this pool. So yeah, that was cool. I liked it. That very helped me in diving.
No, I absolutely love it, and I hope to graduate to that one day. Now, back to today's topic. So everyone understands when we start talking about banking legacy products, what exactly do you mean by that?
While I'm speaking about the banking legacy, I'm actually speaking about some of our clients which we have. So let's say those are banks who are working and operating, let's say, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years even. And during the decades, they have developed their own, let's say, processes, and they have already some kind of systems which they have with the old banking cores, which were developed like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And let's say nowadays they're trying to catch all the innovation stuff, and they want to have a cashbacks, they want to have digital cards, they want to have I don't know, like personal finance management, and they cannot do that very simply because their core system is not allowing that. It's very hard, different data in different sources, in different tables. It's very hard to enrich it. It's very hard to, let's say, aggregate it somehow because not all the cores are allowing it. And what we're trying to do, we're trying those legacy to, let's say, update it in some parts. We are able to update it in some parts. We're just like changing it, rewriting it. But another hard part here is that all those old cores were written in, let's say, basic language or in C or C++, for example, or even PHP. And how to deal with such kind of course, you will ask me, and my answer will be we are trying to build some kind of like hybrid modes when core is operating only as a data source without any kind of logic. And already second layer is our new logic, which is taking data from the core, from the tables, enriching it, aggregating, and then providing to the customers as a new features, as a new products.
And so I definitely understand where you're going, but just for the audience to understand, right? When we talk about a banking's core, what exactly is that?
So banking's core, it's heart of the bank, let's say, in terms of the data. So let's say 20 years ago, bank when you was coming to the bank, you were filling some kind of form, and then the manager of the bank was taking this form and writing it somewhere in some DOS operating system somewhere inside of the databases. And through that time, this core with the data sets and databases is still alive, and it still has all your information about where you live, address, your phone number, your name, surname, all the data which usual client have in their bank. And that is actually the core. And very frequently those cores, as those were built like 20 years ago, they have a lot of logic inside of it. So they have not only the data sets and databases, they're also trying to, let's say, make some calculations. They're trying to aggregate this data to show you a transaction list in your front end on the website, or they're trying to make some, let's say, pre-calculations for some loans and so on. And for them, it takes a lot of time because the technology is already outdated and those data sets are very big and they need to optimize it and build a new microservice architecture.
So one of the issues with the core from hearing you talk about it was from a legacy perspective, it was just one humongous solution. Not only did it store the data, it also has logic embedded inside of it. And the logic that's embedded inside of it are using older programming languages and older logic that is different from today. So, in looking at it from a more modern standpoint, we talk about microservices. So we're separating all of that, but it's difficult for a bank because all their data in terms of customers and so forth are tied to this legacy application. Does that sound accurate?
Exactly. Yeah, you're correct.
Okay. So, and what you talked about earlier was like if there's a way now to just use the core just as the data source itself away from the logic. Is that correct?
Yeah. And thankfully, let's also mention in this podcast AI and machine learning. With the help of the machine learning, we can now make a big research within a short period of time, and we can way easier understand all the connections between the data sets in the old core, and that helps a lot when you need to differentiate logic and data sets. So that is helping us to bring out all the procedures, all the calculations, all the manipulations with the data outside of the core, rewrite it, build it on the new stack, add some kind of AI, aggregate data to build a personal finance management, for example. And with all this help, we can still operate with the old core. But of course, if you want to grow, if you want to, let's say, bring a lot of new clients, then in some perspective, you will also need to change your core at the end. But as the first step, it's way easier and way, let's say, better in terms of the money management to build a second layer of the logic on the new, let's say, tech stack. And only after that to change your old core with the old data sets on the new one, because all of those projects are actually for the bank very harmful, very hard. They need a lot of preparation, a lot of time, and actually lots of money, because you need huge teams to work on that, because you need still to operate on the market. You need to give your customers loans. You need to give a possibility to deposit money. And at the same time, you need to make a transition from the old core to the new one, from the old processes to the new processes.
So with leveraging machine learning, right, and essentially but that particular technology to aggregate the data, why would a bank now need to leave? It seems like the core is still doing what it's doing, but you have this layer that you're using to modernize the application. So what is the incentive to transition to a new core and go through that level of overhead and time?
Very easy example I have. For example, 20 years ago, when you had an offline, I would say, place where people were coming and filling in some, let's say, forms with their data, you was, as a manager, putting it inside of the core in one table. After 10 years, there was some kind of modernization and first websites, and he was given a possibility for the same customers to fill in all the data online. And for this website, there was built a second data set inside of your core. And afterwards, you have tried to make your new, let's say, application several years ago. And for this one, you have, let's say, built one more data set with the data which clients were filling in. So at the most end, what you have as a bank, you have a core. We have 3 databases. And in all these 3 databases, you have the same information. And you need to, let's say, understand where the address of the client is correct in the first data set or in the second data set or in the third one. So very frequently, you also need to re-onboard all of your current customers to digitalize all the data and to understand that this client is really Nnamdi, who is living on the exact address, who has an exact phone number, and also that's helping for the marketing channels, because very frequently they just do not know where to send some kind of marketing resources, because they have different addresses, they have different emails, and how to operate within these 3 data sets they don't know, and banks, they do not know what to do with that. And that's exactly what we're trying to help them with, to aggregate this old data and to move from the old core to the new core.
Wow. So, when you start mentioning that as time went on, looking at a legacy application and then different data inputs are in different places and reconciling them is a challenge, would you say that is one of the most surprising truths in how banks manage their data? Like once you start peeling off the layer? Because as a consumer or a customer, we just think it's some data. Our data is stored somewhere in the bank, and it just works magically. And my debits and credits, right? My account information, and in hearing you talk about when you look at some banks that are not as modernized, the data is basically in different places. Is that one of the more surprising things about how some banks manage their data?
Yeah, that's actually the biggest truth, because you can have an old bank with lots of clients. They have different data centers, their own even, because the majority of those banks, they are not operating in the cloud yet. So that could be also in different data centers, and it's somehow operating with the help of some administrators who are, let's say, solving problems on the fly when they're appearing. When one of the clusters, for example, go down, and some amount of clients, you just do not know their data and you don't know their addresses. And I can also bring one more example. When you as a client want to order a new credit card, let's say you have an application, fancy application with a nice user experience, user interface. You're clicking through the steps. At the most end, this application is writing you a message like, "Thank you, we have ordered your card. You will receive it in some time." At this moment, there could appear a problem that the address which you have, the client's address which you have inside of your core, it's not the correct address. And somewhere in another data set, there should be second address which your client has written, has updated 2 years ago, because this client has moved from one location to another location. So that's why we're also implementing different kind of solutions on how to rewrite, how to update all the client's information while you're moving from the old core to the new core.
That is that's interesting. So wait, basic information as a client from one of these banks who are not as modernized. Let's say they have a front-facing website that I can go to, right? And so I go in there and I see all my account data. Are you saying now in another somewhere else there may be some discrepancy between what I'm seeing online logging in and another database with some other information? Maybe, especially with some of these banks, you have relationships for over a decade, maybe even 20 years. You've been an account holder there.
I would. You are correct, actually, but not fully. I'll explain you. So as far as those banks are operating, they have a lot of administrators and they have a lot of managers who are very frequently controlling how the data sets and databases are working. So, for example, if you have some kind of old database, according to different kind of data management systems, you should still update it and you should control how it's working. But let's say very frequently clients were fulfilling some information during the registration while this bank was offline, and the second time client was fulfilling information about the address when he was first time, or not the first time, but his seventh time he was updating his credit card and he was fulfilling form already online. And so it could happen that the website could have one data set from the core with which this website is working, and at the same time core itself could have one more data set of the data which was given by the client 10 years ago in some offline bank. That means that, let's say, when you want to update and when you want to automate all the credit scoring, for example, and you want to automate issuing of the new card, then you need to understand which address to use. This one which was fulfilled 10 years ago, or this one which was fulfilled at the beginning when the client first time came. So that's what I'm trying to say to you.
That's interesting. What would you say is some of the hidden costs with banks going business as usual, but using the legacy infrastructure?
I would say that mostly I have seen such kind of cases, but that's not the best cases and not the good ones, because very frequently they are trying to build a new application on the basis of the legacy procedures and legacy cores, and at the most end they're getting a big latency, and they're getting very badly working new application. So let's say the front end of the application is working very well, like clicks, all the things are like clicking well, like all the screens are changing quickly, but the data, when they need to aggregate data to, for example, show some diagram, they need to think how to, let's say, bring this all data together and how to draw this diagram. And with the legacy core, with the legacy data sets, which were written on the data, old some code bases, they're just not able to do that in a manner how all the new fintechs are doing. Because all the new fintechs, they're using new technologies, they're using cloud solutions, and they can very quickly and fastly use all their data which they have about their client, and they can show you all the diagrams on the fly. And with the old and legacy core systems, you're mostly not possible to do that.
And I think that's one of the challenges with incumbents, right? In terms of banks, right? You have these fintechs that, like you said, are leveraging newer technology. So the user experience is totally different when I go up on a bank, when I go up to let's say like a challenger bank's app, right? It's a total online bank, but the experience is different. So now, I mean, perfect example. I'm not going to call this particular bank out, right? So one of the things that I've been always interested in is real estate. That's like one of the things I do on the side. So one of my partner and I, we had to get a loan on one of our projects, and it was a commercial project, and the loan that we were able to get when we went through all of them was from this one particular bank, right? And the product, the loan product itself is great, but the user experience is the worst I have ever experienced with a bank. It's just, you can tell the systems are not modern. It's not even me necessarily being in this space that I can tell the systems are not modern. It's just from a customer experience, it is just horrific. Like, even in dealing with the business credit card, you like the mail that I'm getting, and just trying to go in and ask simple questions like, listen, we need to update certain things. Why can't we see this online? And the confusion on the call. And it's just, the only reason why we're working with them is because of the underlying mortgage that they gave on this particular building. And they also gave a decent business credit card. But when comparing them to other major banks that we leverage, right? Night and day difference, right? So dealing with a bigger bank, they have the resources for technology, night and day difference. And, just from a customer experience level, I wouldn't work with them if it wasn't for that particular loan product. But now because of the loan product, it's about, I don't know, maybe a 20-year mortgage. So, I'm going to deal with them, pay them their money. But other than that, I don't want to log into their website. I don't want to, it's just because when you're used to dealing with modern, like the banks that are publicly traded, that are more modern, as opposed to some of the regional, they have more resources. And so the experience is way different. So, I could just see that from putting myself in a customer perspective and dealing with this particular bank and then the other banking relationships that I have, it's a night and day difference.
Yeah, you're one of those clients who has facing these problems, and that is the main problem of the old banks. They have lots of assets, they have lots of money, they have good loans, they can give a good percentage for the deposits, but their user interfaces and user experience usually is awful. And but I think that a lot of things will change during the next 10 years, when all those fintechs and the modern banks will also get more assets, they will get more money, and they will be also able to provide all the loan products and all the, let's say, investment products, then that will be the finish line for all the old and legacy banks who will not be innovative enough during these 10 years.
Well, that's a bold statement. So, are you envisioning over the next decade that they'll just go out of business? They'll just like what are your thoughts around that? They just won't be able to compete in a modern world if they don't make certain changes from a technology perspective?
Actually, current big European or US banks, what they can do, they can, let's say, try to develop by themselves. They can, let's say, bring the cool developers together with the cool product managers and try to build some kind of fancy modern application with modern core banking. That will cost a lot for them, but they will be in trend. Another option for the old legacy banks who have lots of money, they can acquire someone, like buy some kind of good fintech, and then this fintech will be with the name of this old bank, but fintech will have already a new core system with all new applications, and they will just need to make a data transferring. Actually, I'm saying that it's very easy, but that's not easy at all also. That will take lots of time and lots of money, but still that's an option. And the third option for the old banks is to die or to like be acquired by some bigger fintechs. I would not name this fintech, which is right now one of the biggest in the Europe. But as far as I know, they're already trying and they're already acquiring some kind of smaller banks to obtain, first of all, banking licenses. Secondly, with those licenses, they're able to provide loans. And already in some Central European countries, they're providing loans. And I remember that 5 years ago, some managers of the top banks were saying that this fintech will never be able to provide loans. And what happened after 5 years? They're providing loans. Like, okay, currently it's small loans, but I see their future. They will be able to provide mortgages. And what if they will be, let's say, providing some kind of business mortgages or business loans for the big development companies or for the big businesses? They're already providing credit cards for the businesses. So they're getting bigger and bigger, and they're acquiring more and more clients from the old banks.
You know what it sounds like? It literally sounds like Netflix and Blockbuster, right?
Exactly.
Literally
Yeah.
sounds like that, where you have this online streaming service. At the time, it was mailing movies. That's how they started. And you have the incumbent with all their stores that you go into and you rent out the VHS or later on the DVD. And they're like, oh, this will never catch on, right? But you know what you learn is people love convenience is king, right? Right. So like it never occurred to us because I'm old enough to have lived both eras, right? It never occurred that going to Blockbuster was a big inconvenience. It was like, you know what? It's a weekend coming. I want to rent some movies. I'm going to take this trip. But given the option to just be in my home and have those same things mailed to me with no late charges, real simple concept, right? When they started, right? You mail me something, I watch it. Whenever I return it, you'll mail me something new. I pay a subscription, and I just keep this is our transaction. So if I want new movies for the weekend, I have to be diligent enough to mail the old ones back, right?
Yeah.
And then once they got out of that business and transitioned to, I don't have to even go to the post office right now, go to a mailbox. I can just sit in my home and boom, I could just press a button and instantaneously, right? I could watch Mission Impossible. So now it's totally inconceivable for me to leave my home and go to Blockbuster, even though they're out of business, right? But that concept in this modern age we're living in is totally inconceivable. And what happens in the analogy you're describing now is the things that we're doing and putting up with with the legacy banks, because it's almost like we have no choice. They're here, they have the assets. When time catches up and certain challenger banks are able to do similar, it's going to be the same thing. It's like, look, I put an application in online. I got a result back in like 10 seconds, whether I'm approved. The money's in my account. Everything is seamless. Everything is there on an app. Why would I ever even think of doing it the old way, right? And hearing you talk, that's what it sounds like is going to happen over the next decade if certain changes are not made to the incumbents.
Yeah, that's what will happen. And I have one more modern idea, which you will like, I think. Let's assume that in several years, you will get your personal AI assistant, which is in your daily routine, helping you with different kind of stuff. And now you do not need all the, let's say, user experience or user interfaces. What you need your personal assistant to get an access to the data of the bank, to help you to make transactions, to deposit some money, or to get a loan. And how will all these old banks will introduce this data with the old data streams to the artificial intelligence, which needs a high capacity of like sources, and which needs a fast, let's say, data transfer. That just will not work. And those banks or those fintechs who have a new data sets and new cores, they will be in the first line with whom all those AI agents will, let's say, introduce, and with whom they will cope.
Yeah, so that's, now we're bringing up the topic of agentic AI and those types of agents managing your life for you. So I always say this during these types of conversations, right? I have a cybersecurity background, so I do for a living. That's my gateway to fintech. So I was doing a lot of other things, right? But that, I'm not going to use the word scares me. I use the word, the things that we like about banks versus fintechs, highly regulated, right? So even with certain standards have to be met. With fintechs, I feel that at times it's more a suggestion. Like, you should get your ISO, you should get your SOC 2, not because anyone's going to come down on you for not having it, but your industry peers and partners will, because it's the weakest link in the chain is the one compromised. And if you're partnering with me, I can't have you being the weakest link. So it's not government wide, but it's more so industry wide, poses their own certain set of standards. In order for us to do business and partner, I need you to achieve this level of standard. When dealing with, from a customer perspective, giving that type of access to your finances, I always find troubling unless certain safeguards are met. But I definitely could see, but I mean, that's in anything, right? Like, it's a matter of convenience. People trade off certain convenience. Understanding the risk was like, it's going to save me a lot of time. I mean, you could even talk about autonomous driving, right? Like, listen, I have to take a drive somewhere. I want to sleep and I want to get there safely. I want to get there when I get there, but somebody's driving for me. That poses its own set of risks. It's a really interesting issue. I definitely think agentic AI is the future. And for those that don't know what we're talking about, it's more so AI agents acting on your behalf. And also, so it's different from an LLM in which you're asking information to give me this. Now, those agents are going to the LLM and they're making their own decisions based on that to act on your behalf. I definitely, it's the future. It's definitely happening now. from my perspective, I just always feel that
Okay, it seems like we have some kind of issues.
hey, I'm sorry about that. That was totally on me, and we were cooking too. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I apologize, Jonah. I apologize for that to the audience. I seem to have was kicked offline for a second, but that's the beauty of a live show. Sometimes these things happen. Thanks for sticking with me. And I was going on a tangent too. So let's bring it back. Let's bring it back. Let's reset. Listen, today's topic is really like the whole blind spot. What do you feel is the blind spot that banks are missing?
Very frequently, banks do not see risks which they will have in the next 5-10 years. So currently, they're living their good life. They have clients, they have finances, they're giving loans, they're investing money in some business projects, and everything is fine. And some of them, even big banks, they're not investing like sufficient amount of money into IT and into the programming teams. So that, from my perspective, that's one of the biggest risks. So first of all, you should see the trends, you should see the market, you should see the competitors. Each competitor should be a competitor, even if it's not a big fintech at the moment, but which is growing from year to year. Big banks, they should look at them and they should think on how to, let's say, acquire this fintech, or then how to build their own platform and how to update all the cores. So that is the biggest blind spot which I see right now, because let's say, still, as far as AI and ML is developing, still people resources in terms of the IT developers, product managers, designers, those those are the biggest value in each IT company, because yes, some of the people and developers can say that artificial intelligence will be able to write code and in the several years. But as far as we see, when you have a big amount of legacy, when you have a very hard data sets logic inside of the core, then it's, even for the AI, with AI help, it's very tough to, let's say, update it and upgrade it. So still, resources, in terms of the human resources, good developers, it's It's very hard to find nowadays a good developer with a fintech backend and fintech back who has already published some kind of good application. And there is a difference between a usual, let's say, Kotlin developer and a developer who was working in the fintech sphere, because as far as you told already, there are different kind of ISO standards. There are different kind of approaches on how to write code. There is a lot of different stuff, and hiring such kind of people is also not so easy. So that's the first thing which all those big banks and legacy banks should understand, that they need a good IT team, and afterwards they need to become an IT centric. They should understand on how the IT is working and how to make all the updates smoothly.
It's interesting, like you say that, right? I have a stat here. It said 92% of UK financial firms still rely on legacy tech. 78% keep data on-prem.
Yep.
That's a huge number.
Yeah, that's the huge number. And another problem there is when, for example, they decide that they want to update it, and for example, they contact with us. Let's say the main problem, which we very frequently see, that they are not able and they are not ready in terms of the processes to change on-prem to cloud, for example, even this, let's say, first step. And not because they do not want to do that, or not because they do not have enough financing. They have both, but they don't have a processes. And all the standards which they have, all those standards were built on the basis of the on-prem infrastructure. So that's also not so easy, and a lot of steps should be done before you're making some kind of changes. But still, even now we see that on-prem infrastructure is not the, I would say that that's not the biggest problem. Even with the on-prem infrastructure, you can work properly, but if your inner systems are updated. Of course, if you have enough resources and you're able to use cloud solutions, that is wonderful. That brings you to another level. That is giving you a possibility to grow on the worldwide market. Because when you have on-prem, let's say somewhere in the Central Europe, and you want to go somewhere in the Asian market, then that will be way harder for you to go there. And let's say there is different kind of opportunities, but the main problem is the legacy core, legacy processes, and legacy logic.
If you are advising a CIO or CTO tomorrow, what's the first step that you would tell them to fix their data problems?
I would say that the first step is auditing. We should understand what we have on the table, how many people is working right now, right here, which is their stack, technological stack. Are they able to bring the new stack, or they are ready to write only on the old code? And first of all, we need to upgrade the teams. Secondly, we should understand which amount of logic we have and how huge is the problem in terms of the core and all the logic. Afterwards, we are preparing some kind of roadmap on how we are bringing out of all the logic and let's say rewriting it on the new code basis. And the last step is when we will be able to migrate to the new core solution, or when we will be able to rewrite our old core. That's also a possibility depending on which amount of finances you have.
Rewriting the old code, that's really interesting. So with that step-by-step process, what will be some quick wins?
I would say that the quick win will come when the logic will be brought out of the data sets and the databases. So at this point, you will have a quick win. At this point, you will be able to launch a new application which will already work with the new backend written on the new code basis. And here you will be already able to present your customers new features, new solutions, quicker interface, nice user experience, and so on.
So that's awesome. And next thing, just from a product development standpoint, and working in such a highly regulated industry, right? Are there certain frameworks or principles that guide scalable banking product design?
That fully depends on the country where you're operating, and even inside of the EU, there are different regulations in some countries because you still have different registers and so on. And of course, you should obey the regulations of the, for example, for us, for the European Union and the local regulations. And depending on in which country you're operating, you have different sets of these regulations and standards which you should follow. For example, if we're speaking about the Central Europe, you should, or all the Europe, you should follow the GDPR in terms of the data solution. So you're not able to just, I don't know, let's say subscribe for some kind of solution from Australia where you will be transiting some client data and getting some enriched data from there, because that will be very harmful. You will need additional consents from your clients, and clients understand that they do not want to send some kind of personal clients' data to Australia, and let's say lots of issues could happen. So we are also struggling with these things, but we already know how to work with that. And I even say that for some countries, it's not an easy project to bring your old core, which is on premises, to the cloud, because not all the cloud solutions are approved regarding to the certification by all countries all over the world. So, for example, in Asia, if you want to, let's say, move your core banking to Google Cloud, then with the high probability, you will need to speak with the local regulators and to show them how this, let's say, transition process will work, and how it will be working in the future, because you cannot by yourself easily make these changes. You need to get an approval.
That's really interesting. What excites you about this next wave of banking?
I will say that I want banking to be integrated in my life in such a way that I'll not need to go somewhere inside of application and to go through the huge process of clicking like several buttons to get some information about the card which I want. I want to have a, let's say, very quick access from my Apple Wallet, for example, to my card information, and maybe to reorder it, because I see that banks can build some kind of API layers to provide to different kind of applications quicker access. And also what I want to see, which we have already in Europe, it's open banking. When you have one application and where you have several banks, you have access to several cards from different banks, and you have access to several accounts from different banks. And if you need a loan, then you're applying to it from the one application, and you are getting a responses from all the banks in the one application.
Europe, the EU, you've been on the forefront of open banking. I know that's making its way to the US. We had a show on open banking in Nigeria about a year ago or so. So that's really interesting. Last question. What's the one piece of advice that you'll give a banking exec that is afraid to face the blind spot?
If you are afraid right now, then in the closer future, you'll have a big problems when the amount of clients which you have right now will just disappear, and they will switch to the modern solutions which fintechs are building right now. And as we see a modern generation, for example, they are not more using so much Google search, and they are more using ChatGPT. And the same thing could happen to the banks when they're not using an old big banks, and they're giving and bringing their finances to the new fintechs, which are giving them better user experience, better user interface, and clear processes on how to order card and how to work with the bank.
I lied. I want one more question because I was thinking about this, and I'm curious about it. JP Morgan announced they're on the forefront on AI, right? I know Jamie Dimon came out saying that the whole firm is turning in more into an AI firm for banking. I want to get your thoughts on that, right? Obviously, it's going to be a situation where they're on the forefront and others have to catch up. So in that in-between time, them being on the forefront, they're going to save massively and make huge gains until the industry catches up. I want to just get your thoughts on that.
I would say that they're very cool that they have started it, and that they have understood that that's the future. Because I would say nowadays technology, they're running so fastly forward that if you're not inside of this train, and with the high probability you will lose this game. So I would say that the big banks, and most probably the majority of the big banks, they are already on the AI stage. The question here is only how they will introduce it, how they will use it, and what will the end user as a client, as a customer, will get from that.
That's awesome. I want to thank you for your time today. Our tradition on our show is I'm going to give you the stage now to let people know how they can find you, and you can talk about your company and so forth. So I'm going to get off the stage and let you do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So actually, you can find me on the LinkedIn or somewhere in the internet. You can easily write me if you have some good ideas, or if you have some questions, or even if you're a bank and you want to upgrade your legacy system, just catch up with us. We have our company website, xdatagroup.io. So you can go there, you can just check it out, and also write in our corporate LinkedIn. And I'm also on the stage when I'll be publishing some additional information about my thoughts about the banking on the LinkedIn. So if you have some ideas or questions or topics you want to discuss, please let me know in the private messages, and I can easily write a post about it. So thank you so much for this talk today, Nnamdi.
Jack, listen, I always refer to my guests that come on. We have great talks about certain cutting edge topics. You're a friend of the show. We reserve the right to, if something comes up on the news, circle back with you to help you break it down for our audience. To the audience and to everyone watching, thank you very much for your viewership. Really appreciate it. Whether you're watching the show today, whether you're going to watch it tomorrow, next year, whenever you come across it, I really appreciate the views. Thank you. I appreciate the behind the scene messages and the support you've given Tech Behind FinTech over the last 5 years. On that note, I want to also thank our sponsor, Sweating Equity. If you like Tech Behind FinTech, you're going to love Sweating Equity. It's a different format. It's more in person. Sweating Equity, Tech Behind FinTech's remote. It gives us the ability to talk to people like Donat from Estonia and all over the world. Sweating Equity is going to be more local, in your face. We're going to be going through a vigorous workout with our guests, and we're going to, in that working out, in that process, we're going to learn more about them and their leadership style, and just get some insights on their journey. So Tech Behind FinTech is usually about a topic. We're learning about something, where Sweating Equity is focused on the guest. So that will be coming out in the next few. So want to thank everyone once again. Have a great weekend. Listen, we don't talk. Good luck on your half marathon coming up. I know you're training for that. And, if you were local, I would get you into my MMA gym, man. We'll have some fun and we'll make a show of it. But whenever you're in the States and we're doing a show, we might have to try that out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man. So you have a great weekend, and thank you very much for joining.
Thank you so much. Let's have a good weekend.
Cheers.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.